welcome to Road to Blake Street banter, where one of us knows what the word banter means, and the other one is just along for the ride. Lewis, say what's up.
What up? What up? What a fun week we had. I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, no, this was a good one. I mean, the most important news. I gotta recycle this joke. We lost a member of our team. We had to move on from Aaron. Just not cutting it. Not enough effort from Aaron. So he won't be with us now. Where he's having a well-deserved night away from everything. And hey, we got Cade Denton in the chat starting us off. How's it going, big dog? Gotta drop the Aaron signature big dog in there. But yeah, the show goes on. We got a few really fun storylines we're going to be starting out with. Wellington Herrera belongs at the very top of this.
Yeah.
You started off with Wellington Herrera. What has really stood out?
I mean, we look at the history of the Arm Barn in the minor league so far. Every single look at every single team we have. We have one dude that's like, this guy's nuts. Dugan Darnell. Hartford has like 8 of them where you're like, wow, I love these guys. Of course, you have Zach Agnos. We'll get to him later. And Fresno, I don't want to say nowhere, but kind of out of surprise, it was Wellington Herrera, who's just, I don't know what to say other than he's striking guys out. No one's hitting against him. California League hitter league. And I think this week he had 5 innings pitched, no hits allowed, 8 Ks. And that's been what he's been doing all month, and especially past 2 months, he's really caught on the radar. It's funny, we post him on Instagram, and I think it's like his friends and family always repost it. So he's got a lot of fans out there. It's always fun to see that, and I'm excited. I think we see like this young Arm Barn situation. We have a couple guys in the ACL we'll talk about later, and there's just so much strikeout ability, and we're kind of missing that at the top of the organization, I think.
Yeah, we're seeing a bunch of those guys start to pop up. I mean, Herrera, I think, is right now by strikeout rate the best in the system. There might be someone better, but Herrera's running a 47.3% strikeout rate. So basically, every other batter that walks up to the plate against him is striking out. That's nuts, and especially in the sample he's got going. It's not a big sample, 18.2 innings. That's not a lot, but for a reliever, that's also like almost 2 months worth of action. I mean, we're almost 2 months into the season. This is getting significant, and this is a 20-year-old kid, just turned 20 pretty much on opening day. So Wellington Herrera, you're going to see some midseason top 30s. I would not be shocked at all. It'd be shocking actually if he's not like number 30 or 29 on the MLB.com top 30 list for Rockies prospects. So he is absolutely balling. And hoping that for such a young kid, he can keep it up. Not going to be like a push to promote him. Again, he's really young, so that age curve is on his side. But we might just see him get that push to Spokane at some point pretty soon.
Yeah, you make a really good point about the youth. And he still has so much just development to go. And you did say small sample size, but in the sample size, it's not like he's been hanging on to runners on base or just barely scrapping by. It's been dominant for the past 2 months. It hasn't been like, when you see pictures where their ERA is like sub 2, but you're like, well, there's bases loaded every single time you leave. So it's like, how is that? It's going to balance back out. With Herrera, he's just been dominant. And so there isn't really much of a hiccup, even in that small sample size.
Yeah, he's doing everything right. And we talk about batting average on balls in play, BABIP quite a bit. He has us sitting at 344, which is above average. Again, the usual norm for batting average on balls in play, a little over 300, especially in a hitter league, a little bit over 300. So 344 is like a lot of balls in play against him are sneaking for hits. Clearly, this stuff is dominant. The guys are not getting good wood on the ball very often. So, in some ways, he could do better in the future. And not saying he can pitch better. The results could become even better. So that is just super fun. Speaking of someone who potentially he joins in Spokane, maybe you're going to catch him. Brian Betancourt, we got to jump up to Spokane, and Betancourt, guy who just absolutely dominated the DSL, he dominated the ACL most recently. Went to Fresno last year and was okay, but he has just gotten the job done at Spokane so far this year. Also, another 20-year-old. The Rockies do have a lot of these young Latin American prospects who are defying the age curve. So where are you thinking about Brian Betancourt? Where does he slot in with some of these other catching prospects?
I like him a lot, and it's because every year before the season starts, I like to look at the age groups and the youngest guys in each like division of play. And Brian Betancourt is one of the youngest. He's 20, one of the youngest catchers in that league, one of the youngest hitters. So there's just a lot of confidence we see within the org that he can get it done because he's on Fresno. He's already surpassed that. He kind of started slow, but this week was a great week for him. Great week for Spokane as a whole, but when he goes through at bat, that's a really important at bat to watch because he's so young. It's almost like the curve, right, of potential. Like if he's getting better and better, it's only gonna become an MLB player. Like he can only, if that makes sense. If he's X good now, he's only 20. So that's the way I look at it. Mason Albright's another guy. He's 21, another super young guy. We'll talk about him later. But those are the guys you really want to be paying attention to, are the dudes that are defying the age for the league, and we see that with Betancourt.
Yeah, I mean, with a lot of sports, you think about the NFL draft, especially with quarterbacks. You think about the NBA. Age is so big because is there a ton of physical development to happen in these years? There's also that mental development, and so guys really can take off as they enter their early and mid 20s, especially. So doing this at the age of 20, he is now, after this week, he hit 2 home runs. Like a 1,400 OPS this week. His WRC plus 100 is average. Always remember that. 138 WRC plus on the season, so 38% above average. That's really significant. So he's absolutely doing his job in that Spokane lineup. That with the kind of the stalling out of some of the hitters there, we'll discuss that a little bit. They've needed someone like Brian Betancourt to take that next step, and he's doing exactly that. Becoming again that kind of top 30 prospect that he got some credit for. And I guess I was right that he never played in the ACL, which is kind of weird. DSL, his final year in the DSL, he had a 190 WRC plus and could not get him out. And then jumped to Fresno, and that's a tough transition. So we're just seeing him now get comfortable with full season pitching. The sky is the limit, as you're kind of mentioning, with the age and the typical trajectory that's going to happen with that. So but sticking in Spokane for another storyline, we need more information. I don't know if you've seen anything more recently since the news dropped that Zach Agnos, it was either in warmups or one of their first pitches he threw in a game, and was feeling something in his arm and left immediately. I don't know if you saw anything else about that.
I haven't seen anything on it yet. I know Aaron's talked to Agnos a couple of times. Maybe we can send Aaron a text Agnos and see if we know what's up, get insider information here, but hopefully it's just something small, something like almost like precautious, where it's like, hey, like we're going to catch it before the injury, so we're being more than cautious. We're even like, we're going to take you out now, so there's not even any chance of an injury. Hopefully it's like one of those where it's like 10 days. Just make sure he's 100% because we talk about the arm barn a lot. He's been dominant, like just getting the job done, Mr. Reliable, and hate to see him go down.
Yeah, and I mean, just we all have become a little more sensitive to those arm injuries this year, which I think that at this point, it seems kind of like a normal year. There's guys getting injured. That's always the case on the pitching side. But the Tommy John surgery is something we're always a little bit skeptical of. It seems like a lot of times when guys are going out with an arm injury, especially a lower arm injury, not the shoulder, that's something you always think worst case scenario. So we're really hoping that's not the case here because he's been like you kind of mentioned, been one of the best relief prospects the Rockies have had in years. He gets the job done pretty much every single time.
Yeah, and I would like to preface that. I know like relief prospects, it's almost like a negative. People that are like, this guy has relief risk. But relievers are so important to have in your system, especially if you want to become a good MLB team. Having young relievers with options is that's just how you win ball games in the summer. So these guys are so much more important than you could ever really imagine. Like having dudes that are young that can just get 3 outs. I feel like there's a negative connotation with relievers in the minor leagues, but most of these guys you see that are starters are also going to end up being relievers. That's just a matter of fact. So we'll talk about one later that I think is going to be an elite reliever. And so, yeah, that's just what's going to happen. And so I love these guys. Agnos, we talked about Herrera. They're so important. Don't even just think of them as just like broken pitcher prospects because that's not really the case. These guys are still dominant.
When I like what they did with Agnos, and it brings up an important point about relievers versus starters. The Rockies drafted him, and the plan immediately was this kid's going to the bullpen, and there were enough signs like early on that, hey, this kid's also going to be the closer for these teams. And he's since racked up 33 saves in a season and a half, pretty much, a little bit less than that even. So he has been super good in that role, and that's experience that's different from a converted starter. A converted starter is never going to get that experience, and it's going to be a whole new learning curve with that. Being a reliever, it is a different mindset. It's a completely different situation. So I like having guys that are just going full steam ahead on that path instead of bouncing between. I mean, those guys are always going to find success too, but Agnos is someone who in 2 years, hopefully he's a guy who's pushing for some from late innings with the Rockies.
I agree, man. We have some comments here, so we get. Do you want to go and just talk about Drew Romo? And we don't know if it's
perfect segue.
So we don't have great details on that. We don't have any details, no insider sources, but he's killing it, and he's a defensive. He's a guy that we looked at his defense when he was coming up, and it was like, this guy's got good defense. Albuquerque, Ryan, a little bit of a offensive dream, right? If you're a position player, they're like, you're gonna hit 300 plus. If you can hit, you're gonna hit 300 plus. And so what we're seeing, he's just being so good to the point where it's like, just put him in the MLB. Let's just see like what's up. Defensively, I think he's gonna be there. Maybe not right off the bat, but I think he'll definitely learn with the learning curve. He's got talent. He's probably the best catching prospect we've had in a long time.
Yeah, I'm trying to wrap my head around who might rival that, and I mean the Rockies haven't invested that much into catching, so Drew Romo is really the guy. Like, he's on the Mount Rushmore of Rockies catching prospects, and his career hasn't even really gotten started. It's certainly not that deep. I mean, he's hitting 382. Like, I would love to see him walk a little bit more, work some ABs in a different fashion. But if you're finding good wood and you're finding grass, like that's when it's okay to not walk. Unfortunately, to Rhino's question and point, it's tricky to like understand what happens with the Rockies' current roster. I mean, we saw Hunter Goodman get a start at catcher, so like clearly the team is set at catcher. They have two really good veterans. I don't want to say really good veterans who are stable and worthy of playing time. I agree though with Rhino's final point. You might have to consider moving some chips around to give a guy like Drew Romo, who should be a really key piece of your future. You got to get him up there. We know he's going to be Rule 5 eligible, so he's getting added in the offseason either way. So we saw, I mean, Jordan Beck he was going to be Rule 5 eligible in like 2 years. They pulled the trigger already. Drew Romo, it's an inevitability that he will be Rule 5 eligible. So he's got to be up soon, but who knows?
I think me and Ryan are kind of like on the same wavelength, where if Jacob Stallings is the guy that's stopping Drew Romo from getting playtime, I think that's just dysfunction within the front office. But right now it's fine. If we go to like June and July and it's still the case, I will start getting upset about it. But Romo's raking. Stallings is doing great. Diaz is great. Like I said, trading him would be great. I think I say it every single pod. Like, Diaz being traded, go win a ring, and help us out, get Romo up. So everybody wins.
I mean, it'd almost be a service to Diaz. Like, he's an impending free agent. He's contributed really greatly to this organization. I think everyone loves him here, but he could go somewhere that's a guaranteed contender right now. That's who would be trading for a catcher, and it helps the Rockies out getting one of their top prospects up there. So trade speculation is always a little tricky, but yeah, it seems like one of the most logical things the Rockies could do in recent times. And another guy who's kind of in that Drew Romo boat right now is Carson Palmquist. We've seen him just absolutely shove all year. You said like best catching prospect with Romo. I'm trying to think of the last time a pitching prospect performed this well for the Rockies. We're seeing kind of those two like unique storylines going on. Palmquist is doing crazy stuff. Like, he's the guy who's almost threatening Wellington Herrera for the strikeout percentage lead right now. He's at 38.1, which is crazy for a starter, that you're basically striking out 40% of guys who come to the plate against you. I mean, when do we see Carson Palmquist?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. And I think Palmquist has risen, I almost want to say, to a top 10 prospect for us. And I know that as the fan base will think that, because when we post Carson Palmquist, he gets significantly more likes than any other prospect. It's like him and Dolan, they're like the top two. So he's just done so great. He tied the strikeout record in a game yesterday for Hartford. Just I don't know how he tied it 12. Insanity. Like, and you think about this guy, he wasn't like a top 10 pick. He was, if I'm not wrong, second, third round, right?
Third round.
Third round. And third round, what you're looking at is like, hey, can this guy become an MLB player? Like first round, first 3 picks, you're like, hey, this guy's going to be an MLB player. Third round, it's, hey, can we find a back end guy? I think we've already kind of reached past that, right? I think he's going to be a good back end guy. I think it's not, hey, what else can we get from this? We've already kind of won the pick. We've already kind of gotten what we need from it. Granted, I'm saying all this, he hasn't been a start yet, but he's that dominant. Like Eastern League, I say it every single podcast, the most saturated league for talent. Like every single team there has so much talent, and he's dominating them. Like it's every single week. His ERA is like 2. He's striking out every single batter. Like it's something. I know we talk about Dolander a lot. We talk about Sullivan. Palmquist is right with them. If not, I might put him above him because he'll be there earlier. So I don't know about you, but that's what I think.
I mean, the risk is certainly lower, and like you said, I agree. He is a pretty surefire back-end starter. We got to see him pitch in spring training in that start, and watching that, you knew, like, okay, this guy will at least fend for himself at the big league level. Like, I guess really worst case, he becomes a good multi-inning reliever, which that's a valuable piece. That just with his lack of velocity, you question maybe how effective he'll be as a starter. But he's proving right now he's diversified his arsenal a little bit more, like adding pitches this late in the game, and it's clearly served him well. He is a guy that hitters just can't sit on anything, and it's such a deceptive action that he or operation that he brings. Guys can't really hit that. So I think with him, the funkiness, the number of pitches he can throw, he will be a back end starter at least. It's tricky with timelining him though, and Rhino alluded to AAA in the chat. Like that's the part we don't know what to do.
Yeah, I look at a guy like Palmquist, and it's kind of like the pitching prospect or type that I feel like has really become popular. It's the innings eater, the guy that will go out there and be an average pitcher, but he'll pitch 200 innings, which for any MLB team like is one of the most valuable guys you can have. Like I don't think Palmquist, he doesn't throw like 100, so I don't think he's gonna get injured. Knock on wood, but. So we look at this guy, it's like, hey, can this guy go out every single 5 games? Can he give us 6+ innings? And can he just not make it to where the game's 10-0 after 6? He'll do that for you. And that's almost more valuable than a guy that throws 100 but has a high pitch count because he a lot of foul balls or gets injured. Like, that's more valuable than that. We see so many of these, like, 35-plus-year-olds that are pitchers that are so valuable because they just go out there and they pitch 6 innings every 5 days. And that's what I think Palmquist is. I think he'll be in the league for a long time because I think he'll go out there. I like his changeup is dominant. Like his changeup yesterday was great. It's fooling everybody. And I like that. I think it will translate to become a league average pitcher. Like I'm pretty sure about that.
Yeah, I mean, velocity gives you a little more room for error. Like if you throw 95 down the middle, I mean, that's probably going to get hit. But if you throw 90 down the middle, you're now in like shark infested waters. Like guys are just eating at that. Palmquist, though, has figured out how to maximize. Like he's gonna sit 90 to 92 in his starts, but he pitches hanging. He is gonna work the corners. He's gonna work away from hitters where they're just struggling to get a barrel on the baseball, and we're seeing that this year. He's allowed 1 home run in 44 innings. Again, you mentioned really talent saturated league. Like he's finding ways to beat the best hitting prospects in the game. So. He's maximizing his archetype, not something you see very often. So I don't know if he goes to AAA. That's kind of been our theory. He's going to go straight to the big leagues when the Rockies need a starter. They kind of do need one right now. Kyle Freeland will be back likely in a month or so. We don't really know. He hasn't really been throwing yet. But with that kind of spot that's been taken by Ty Block, Peter Lambert, this is the time I'd love to be seeing Carson Palmquist up there. But we're probably going to be waiting a little bit longer, that 40-man situation. We saw Julio Carreras as a pretty likely, like, okay, you could DFA him and put someone on the 40-man. They chose Matt Cook to be that guy for now. So Carson Palmquist will have to wait at least a little bit.
Yeah, I think Matt Cook's going to be there because if I'm not wrong, Bird's injury is going to be like a 15-day one. So it's not going to be something that the timeline's not going to be great. Like you don't want to throw someone in the big leagues, kind of like we did with Chivali. Where it's just like for a couple of days. I'd rather him get caught up and have like, hey, here's a month, go out there and make 5 starts and see what you can do instead of like 2 starts. So I kind of
Yeah,
get it from that perspective.
with a guy like that, I don't think you mess around too much with. Like we've seen Jordan Beck play all but like 2 games that he's been
Love
available
it.
for.
Yeah.
Like that's how you need to approach your top prospects is just let those guys run. Unless your team is just is running with talent, but the Rockies right now they're still finding ways to fill the back of that roster and become more competitive. So you got to get guys like Palmquist in there off it. Excuse me. It's a good signal to get into some of the kind of usual topics for us running through the minor league teams. And we're gonna start at the bottom, or we're gonna start at the bottom and then jump back up to the top. We haven't discussed the ACL, the Arizona Complex League, yet. And Rockies fans need a preview of that because it's like the launching pad for talent into the organization. Obviously there's the DSL, but it's really hard to buy into DSL numbers. The ACL is really where a lot of guys they're showing you what they're more likely to become. And so for a guy like Robert Kalaz, if you're a Rockies fan, you're familiar with our pod. I'm sure you know who Robert Kalaz is, but if you don't, this is someone who's getting a ton of national attention as like a borderline top 100 prospect. Physical tools are off the charts. He's still really young, and he's performing so far in the ACL. So that to start us off, that is one of my favorite, and I mean, objectively, the best prospect that the Rockies have at the ACL level.
I agree. Like it's funny with the ACL because we're looking back. Like these are guys that signed in like 2021, 2022, that like off season. So like these guys signed like forever ago, and now we're really starting to see them blossom and develop. And I let you guys know right now, like Baseball America, I read an article. Scouts are saying we have a lot of talent pitching wise in the youngest, like the teenagers. We'll talk about one later, a guy who I think is going to be phenomenal. We'll talk about him later. But Callis he's kind of the headliner for the teenage group, I guess you could say. Like he's like the prized possession of the young guys. Even Ashley Andujar, not going to be talked about today, but the international pool that we scout it so well. It's one of the few things I think we can look at the Rockies and be like, hey, you guys are actually very good at this. So I'll give them that.
Yeah, there's a really good crop there of international guys who spent a year or two, depending on who they are, in the DSL and are now stateside. And that's a pretty big transition. You know, culturally, there's a off the field and on the field cultural differences that are kind of being weighed. It's a little bit of a different style of baseball. So these guys are going to come in and things are different. They have to adjust. Seeing them hit the ground running like Kalaz, that gives you a lot of hope. And he's gotten a ton of hype from. Baseball America made an article. I think he was of teenage prospects last year, his 90th percentile exit velocity, which is kind of a nice way of really averaging out exit velocity. It's not giving you the max, which is like, his absolute best. The 90th percentile is still an average, basically. So his, though, of teenage hitters, I believe, was the highest in all of minor league baseball last year. It was like 108. So he's a guy, just a ton of power. He's athletic. He's going to get the job done. Some of those other international guys, we have Kevin Hidalgo. He's a middle infielder. Yeah. He's a guy. He played really well in the DSL last year. Yaiker Reyes is someone who in the DSL didn't get a lot of attention, but he is crushed in the ACL. And I shouldn't say crushed because he's a lot more of a finesse player, but he's doing work. Derek Bernard. And then one that we will spend quite a bit of time here is Luigi Casilla. And I got to give a shout out to one of our prospect guys, Isaac Stevens. He wrote an article kind of breaking down some of the likely breakouts from the DSL. Luigi Casilla was one of the guys he spent the most time talking about, and we're seeing some serious hype build around him.
Yeah, I want to spend some time on Kevin Hidalgo.
And that too.
And then we will get into Luigi Casilla. That dude's insane. That's who I was talking about earlier. I like Hidalgo and Bernard. Bernard is funny. I think he was born in America and then moved to Dominican Republic to get signed. It's one of those like Ethan Salas type guys. He's a little like 6 foot, but both Hidalgo and Bernard have great power over contact builds, which is always fun. Will always boost you up rankings if you have good power more than contact. That's just like something scouts love. So I like those two. Hidalgo's more the shortstop. I think they've already moved Bernard to second base, which is good because shortstop's kind of filled for the future for the Rockies. So I like to see guys realistically make that change early in their career. So those two I think are my two favorite under the radar guys. But Luigi Garcia, I mean, this is a guy going into the season. Baseball America said mid 90s, and then I look. Is it Luke or Luke, the one that runs the MILB account for us?
It's Isaac.
Isaac posted a video of him throwing 100. So Baseball America is like mid 90s to coming into the year. He's already moved that up to 100, and he's still a teenager. That guy's gonna be insane. He has a good slider. He's still raw. Like he's still gonna learn pitches. I think I don't like being like this guy's good at cores or he's gonna be good at cores. This guy still has like 5 years of development to go. So we don't really know, but as pitching wise, he's as good as it's gonna get for a 19-year-old or 19, right? 18. So
Yeah,
that's where we're at. I mean, this guy's insane. K Den just said ACL is nasty. I agree. The ACL is fun. You see just a lot of dudes from a lot of different places go there and ball, and it's always fun to see these guys put up insane numbers.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about Yaiker Reyes before moving into some of our drafted prospects that are there. Yaiker Reyes is someone who he does not have a professional home run to this point, and he has a few hundred plate, or a little over 200 plate appearances in the minor leagues. But he already has 7 stolen bases, and he's running a .556 on base percentage through 10 games. Small sample, but this is clearly a guy with a scrappy leadoff type of profile. And guys like that, sort of like we talked about relievers, a little bit underappreciated. The no power but high contact, speed, defense type of guys. Yaiker Reyes, another one getting national attention for that ACL Rockies roster, but he's in the chat, so it's very fitting to flip the switch to our drafted guys. Cade Denton, he's in the ACL right now. I mean, maybe he can provide a little bit of a. I actually won't put the pressure on him. He was in Fresno a little bit last year, so we imagine he'll get back there at some point pretty soon. But he's one of those top relief prospects in the system. We thought maybe he'd get a chance to start, but that hasn't happened, and it might be for the best because he fit that role insanely well in college at Oral Roberts. Right now, he's run off four solid innings, 3 solid appearances in the ACL. And Cade, I mean, his slider, his fastball combo, that is one of the best that the system has. So he's the top drafted prospect in the ACL for the Rockies, but there's a few guys that could also make a push there.
There's Cade. He's in the hotel, so seems like he's living the life. He's got the.
I mean, it's Arizona.
Yeah.
Arizona's not bad at all.
But yeah, hopefully he's in Fresno in a couple weeks or so. Join maybe Herrera, have a fun little bullpen there.
Yeah. That's one of the arms that we can certainly be excited about. Hopefully get some more of those back end opportunities. That's what we're hoping the 8th, 9th inning. Cade, we got to see you out there doing some work. But other guys, he wants us to finish the lyric. I don't know if did we have a lyric going or living it up in the hotel. I'm
not cultured. I'm very uncultured.
Okay, drop it for us. Drop the lyric. We didn't follow through.
That's what I just looked up.
But other drafted prospects that really stand out there, Brad Cumbest. We hadn't seen him make his pro debut. Literally a tight end from Mississippi State. Like Brad Cumbest literally was a tight end at Mississippi State. He did play baseball though, so he's not just a tight end. Brad Cumbest is a physical monster. That guy is a physical specimen. And I think the Rockies wanted to take their time with him and work through some stuff with his swing. He reminds me a bit of a right-handed Sam Hilliard. And I don't know if you've gotten a chance to really dig into any video that we saw in college, but I see some right-handed Sam Hilliard in Brad Cumbest.
Does he have the same swag as Sam Hilliard?
I mean, that's tough to gauge at this point, but I mean the just the football like size and ability. I feel like that's like some swag in and of itself. That
yeah, for sure. Like Sean Payne might steal him from us.
Oh, dude,
is it Hotel California?
I didn't have the melody going in my head. Living it up.
I do know that.
Hotel California. There we go. Okay, there we go. That's an alley-oop. Thank you for helping us finish that.
Yeah.
But the ACL, though, is also home to a few rehabbing pitchers right now. The one closest to the big leagues, Tanner Gordon, he was very solid in AAA last year. Don't know what the injury is, but he's been in the ACL. He hasn't pitched for a full season affiliate yet this season, but someone that could be on the Rockies' radar, relatively soon. He certainly showed that he's pretty advanced last year. And then McCade Brown and Mike Prosecki. I just want you to kind of sort through those three guys. What are we expecting from them this year? Where do they kind of stack up amongst the Rockies' pitching prospects?
I'm really high on Prosecki. Like I wrote the article or the piece about him. I think he's gonna go out there and eat innings. He did it in Fresno last year. McCade Brown's a dog too. A little less on McCade Brown. I'm more like Mike Prosecki's a guy I'm just really high on. So like McCade Brown, love him, but I love Prosecki. And I mean, these are dudes that like you go to the ACL and I feel bad for Prosecki because he's been kind of like nowhere, right? He's not listed anywhere. Like they don't tell you like this guy's injured. They just kind of disappear on us, and that sucks. I wish the Rockies could communicate, hey, this guy's going to the ACL in May, but they don't do that for us, so that sucks. But I'm so glad to see all these guys back. I think all these guys I like their potential. I like Prosecki a lot to be a back end of the rotation guy. Like you said, Gordon was killing it last year in AAA. I think he was part of the Braves trade, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, the Pierce Johnson deal.
So I love to see that, but I think just all the pitching guys. We need all these guys back, right? I know we say we need to pull guys up and promote guys, but there's still a lot of dudes that we haven't seen yet this year that I'm so excited to see. Like, I mean, we have some in June and July that like Gabriel Hughes needs to come back, and we're only going to get stronger.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys that have been on the shelf. McCade Brown missed all of 2023, a good bit of 2022. This is a guy still with less than 100 professional innings, and he was drafted in 2021. So luck has not been on his side in terms of injuries, but McCade Brown was one of the better strikeout command guys that the Rockies have had in a while. He struck out 118 and walked just 23 in his full season debut in 2022. He has power stuff. He can throw multiple breaking balls. That guy could be really, really good. So I'm really glad that he's back. Soon to turn 24 later in the season. It'll be interesting to see how the Rockies manage him. The last time he pitched for the Rockies was in Fresno at the single A level. So do we see him get that jump to Spokane? Are they going to take it a little bit slower? But overall, those rehabbing guys, they are sort of the symbol that there's like kind of a jam going with the Rockies pitching. There's not space for these guys. Like Mike Prosecki, it seems like he's healthy. Like on MILB.com, he's not listed on a rehab assignment. I think they're usually pretty good about denoting that, like truly if it's a rehab or not. Mike Prosecki, though, it's unclear. And when those guys do get pushed up eventually, that's just spots they're not there right now. Those spots in the rotation in Fresno and Spokane, they're not there. The bullpens are full. So there's a ton of pitching in this organization. I mean, the ACL is the first step in really figuring all that out. So exciting roster. You guys have all got to keep up with that. Hope that some of these names are fun to follow along with this season. We're going to jump back up to the top of the ladder for the Rockies and kind of get through this one a little quickly. I don't think anyone has enjoyed the Albuquerque Isotopes news. They have been truly the little Rockies this year. What do you got on the Isotopes?
Yeah, man, it's been frustrating. And playing in Albuquerque is always going to be frustrating, right? Like, I sent you guys an article. The Dodgers paid to get out of Albuquerque back in 2014. Like, it's not – pitching-wise, you don't want to be there. You don't want to develop talent there. So we kind of see a void with, like, young guys there. We don't really see many. But it's just been kind of off. The fun games, though, if you guys want to watch. A lot of fun things happening. Even when we lose, we score 10. So it's like, love it. Guys are hitting, though. We saw Nolan Jones and KB had rehab games. They didn't do great, but they're smiling. They're happy. That's always fun to see. Like, I don't really think stats matter for rehab games. Like, it's whatever. Like, they're rehabbing. So it's fun to see him smiling, fun to see them back in uniform. Coco, though, is a guy I want to talk about. He is on the 40-man, so it is easy for him to get that call back up. I saw him last year at around – was it this time he got called up? Maybe it was a little later. But
I think a little later, yeah.
He hit for the cycle – right, without the single, so that sucked. But 15 for 26. Like, that's insane this week. He's done it the past 3 weeks. He's batting like 340 or something insane. 2 home runs, a triple in there, a couple of doubles. One guy I know Aaron loves to talk about is Tolia. In the morning, we'll whip around. If you guys listen to that, you should. If you don't, he always looks at Tolia like, hey, is he walking? This week he wasn't. 2 walks, 12 Ks. Not something you want to see out of Tolia, but again, walking in Albuquerque is weird. There's less walks for hitters in Albuquerque just because, I mean, if you're batting 350, why would you take a walk? Like, it almost is counterintuitive, if that makes sense, to work a walk because of how high BABIP is in the Albuquerque. It just happens. Willie MacGyver's a guy, I think it's like his 3rd series in a row where he's like had an OPS over 1,000, but he's not playing every game. I love MacGyver. MacGyver kind of symbols my favorite thing about baseball in minor league, where it's like this guy is just scrapping his way up. So I want him to go. If MacGyver doesn't get called up to the Rockies anytime in his career, I'm going to be really upset because I think this is a guy we need to like almost reward his like service of his just like mentality of like, hey, I'm just going to go out there and do what they tell me to do, and I'm going to do it at a high level. And I love that. Like, that's just like the type of guy we need to reward. Like, hey, this guy is going out there every single day, balling out. I know Romo's there. Romo's younger, but I love MacGyver.
Yeah, I mean, he's paid his dues. He's paid his dues. That is for sure. And he's hit well. Like this year, he's really finding that groove. He's been healthy, and it shows. You know, the Rockies might have a lot of prospects at that level, like Coco. Totally. I mean, Coco is kind of still a prospect. Totally is not. MacGyver is, but I mean, between him and Coco, they're a little up there in age. Those are guys ready for the big leagues. Like whether they're ready for a starter role or not is a different story, but the path for them to get playing time is tricky. And so the Rockies are in a weird spot where they have options, but getting them all opportunities and just figuring out who's really built for that moment, it's tough. I mean, MacGyver has to outwork Drew Romo, and Drew Romo is going to get the benefit of the doubt every time, even if he's not hitting almost 400. So it's a tricky spot to be in as a hitter right now for the Rockies. They have a lot of better than AAA, not quite at the majors type of players. Like they're all just fighting for a little bit of air pretty much.
Yeah, I always talk to Aaron about this on the pods. Like, there's this like front office wise, like you get flack if you don't sign anybody in free agency, but you also get flack if you don't let the young guys play. So like they're stuck between a rock and a hard place, right? Like Stallings, sure, we signed him. Is he blocking path of playing time? Yes, but he's an MLB player, right? We can't really be mad about that. Jake Cave's the same way. Like, fans are going to be mad either way. Like, they're going to be mad if we're losing 100-plus games, which we probably will regardless, but that's just the way it is. And we're going to work on that. That's what Bill Schmidt is cooking. That's all I'm saying. All right? We have tons of draft stuff going on. Like, this system is already, I think, top 15. I love our depth. I think we have one of the deepest systems in terms of just, like, quality starters or starting caliber players. But we see so many of these guys that are, like, fringe MLB, but like, do we know because they barely play? You know, like maybe Coco is good and we just don't know because we haven't given him the Jordan Beck type at bats like we're seeing with Beck. Because if Beck didn't have the label of Jordan Beck, he would have been called down by now and he would be playing in Albuquerque. So should we? It's just like this weird toss up, and you can't really win when you're the front office of the Rockies.
And yeah, just getting all this depth it's a double-edged sword, and the Rockies are always going to add a ton of players. They get an extra high pick every year, whether it's in competitive balance round A after the first round or competitive balance round B after the second. They always get that pick as a small market team. That's an extra really good player that they're adding every single year. And you see these log jams start to fill up. And again, the ACL has all these rehabs. There's so much talent that's being pushed forward. And to your point, you mentioned some free agency stuff. The Rockies aren't in much of a position to be signing guys because there's so many players in their system. You got to give them a shot and see if they're going to click at any point. Otherwise, you're kind of just wasting, your organization's time and the assets that you took to get them.
I do want to go back to Rhino's comment here about. I agree. Like Charlie Blackmon's a guy where it's like my favorite player ever, and if he doesn't retire, I think we have to bring him back. Like, I think it's like, I don't know how to explain it, but like, you don't want to see Blackman play in like another uniform. Like, that's just not something you want. But it does suck. Like, I love Blackman, and if he retires, I'll be happy because we get younger guys. But if he doesn't, I'll be happy I get to watch him play. That's the ultimate double-edged sword right there. Like, we all love Charlie Blackman, but Charlie Blackman is not going to be there when we start winning. So
Yeah, it's tricky, and again, it highlights the depth thing going on right now. A lot of outfielders. Someone like Mike Tolia, who's in AAA right now, could be getting a big league opportunity if not for Charlie Blackman being here. We love him being here, but there are of course downsides to that, as there is anything. But in other news from Albuquerque that we'll whip through real quick, Matt Cook called up. We've talked about his dominance a little bit this year. He deserved this call up. We'll see what happens with him. Like he was pretty solid for the Rockies last year. He had like I want to say a 9-inning scoreless streak to start his Rockies career. Looked really solid. Kind of broke down a little bit. We'll see if he can pick back up on that. Starting pitching just continues to get rocked. The Rockies really are, they don't have their best guys there. We know that. They're trying to find guys to just fill those spots, and it's tough. It really is tough. And
yeah, it's very clear if you look at like how we've obtained the starters in Albuquerque that they're not putting weight. Like Banfield was a minor league free agent. I want to say Rogers was too. So it's like a lot of dudes we were signing just to fill the void.
Yeah, and they're sort of there as like emergency if like you would have 2 starting pitcher injuries in the same week and you need a guy now. Like you bring up one of them, they start a game or 2 for you, and that's that. That's the value of some of those later 20s, early 30s minor league free agents. And that's, what they're hanging on to is they want to just get that big league shot. And if they hit the ground running, then maybe they get another opportunity either with that team or with another organization.
Yeah, that was – I know Blanco for the Astros, not the greatest right now PR-wise, but that's what he was going into the season. He was, hey, AAA depth. And then he goes out there in spring training, goes out there, balls out. Granted, we know what happened, but that's what these guys need. Like, they're like, give me a shot, and then, hey, you go out there and you pitch 6 scoreless innings, all of a sudden there's a huge conversation to be had about you and are you going to be on the Rockies? And that's all they're asking for is that chance. And some of these guys are going to get that chance.
Yeah, no, a lot of them, it takes one thing to fall into place. I mean, they have MLB skill. Like, all those guys that we mentioned, Rogers, Battenfield, Danish, they've all been to the big leagues before. But it's so hard to find your best form all the time. So those guys, I mean, I don't expect them to be big league contributors, but if they get up there, they're hoping that things can click for them. That's what every guy is hanging on to, playing in the minor leagues, especially if they're on the older side. They're just hoping things can click and that they can really, play to the best of their abilities. Everyone in the minor leagues has, at least close to the ability to play in the big leagues. It just requires everything to line up. But taking a spin to Hartford, one of the more exciting teams we have, they went 3-3 on the week. Unfortunately, kind of a big story out of the gate. Zach Veen was in and out of the lineup after getting really hot there in late April and early May. We think he was sick. It sounds like there was something kind of going through the clubhouse. But
Him and Thompson both got sick because both of them got scratched from, I think, the first game. Then Veen was put in the second game and then taken out again. It was weird. They seem to be fine because Veen played and then got ejected for arguing balls and strikes. So I think he's perfectly fine.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we like to see from him a little bit.
Which he didn't get to play. That was his first at bat. So he kind of missed, I think, 3 to 4 games this week. So not a lot of Veen content, but at least he's perfectly fine.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we live for at this point. That's like one of our 2 or 3 favorite stories to be following is Zach Veen. I mean, otherwise we mentioned Carson Palmquist. He continues to just dominate that AA level. Some of the other pitching though that excelled this week. Jared Candy, one of our dudes, 5 innings pitched, 2 earned runs, 7 strikeouts. He's usually not a huge strikeout guy, so to see 7 and 5 innings is pretty solid.
Yeah, I want
to also
real quick my bad. Real quick on Candy, yeah. I want to just point out. I want to say the first 4 innings of his last 2 starts have been perfect or close to that. It's been that 5th inning, or I don't know what pitch it is, but he definitely starts falling off after like X pitch him out. I don't know what it is, but I wonder. I don't want to say bullpen guy, but I wonder if that's something he can work on because starting the first 3-4 innings, he's elite. He's really good, but he really falls off at the end there. So I think Candy, even he has a couple earned runs, but I think he can tweak that.
Yeah, and I haven't gotten to see him pitch enough this year. I know he's not like a big velocity guy, and I think that for guys like that, if you're not overpowering hitters, it's a little bit easy if your stuff does slip even the slightest amount, you become a little bit more hittable. So he is someone who's going to be in that balance this year. He's done a lot better than I think people were expecting to start this season in Double A. He's delivering like fringe quality starts almost every time. Like this week he didn't get the 6 innings pitched, but I mean, that's as good as a quality start going 5 innings and allowing 2 runs. Like you keep your team in the game with that.
I agree. Then you have like Angel Chavihi and Jaden Hill. Like we know who these guys are. These Chavihi, the phantom call up didn't phase him. He comes right back down. Doesn't have to buy donuts for the team and coffee, and he's always hunting back. He's still dominating. The walks are still a little weird with most of these guys in the bullpen. Hill's cleaned it up a little bit, but I mean, Juan Mejia, the walks are kind of off the charts, and I think like that's something. Talk about Aaron. There's a correlation. You walk guys, run score, and so don't really want that. You see, like Gomber had that streak last year of like no walks. Like that's kind of what we need. It's like here, go like a month without walking a guy. I promise you that ERA will go down.
Yeah, I mean Mejia has to figure out Chavi though. Really solid week for him, but I think he walked 3 in the 4 innings. That's a little bit more than you'd like to see going nearly a guy an inning. Someone who's figured out the walks, Mason Albright. He did not walk anyone in 6 innings this week, and that's kind of the norm for him. He is a really good control guy, usually has solid command. He's up to 9 walks on the season and 7 starts, 28.1 innings. So he's really turned a corner as one of those young guys you mentioned at the very top of this pod. Young for the league. He's 21 and a half years old. And the left-hander, he came from Los Angeles. He's really, really figuring things out this season after a little bit of a rough start.
Yeah, I almost wonder with trades because we play at cores, or I almost wonder when we're trading for prospects if we can almost tailor make like a trade package for us. Like I like Jake Madden, but Albright seems to be like a guy that we have a lot of confidence in. Again, 21-year-old. I think he's he's the 3rd youngest pitcher in Double A. At least to start the season, he was. So there has to be a lot of confidence in the org. Like, hey, this guy can go out there and he's going to end up. Maybe not now, because right now he's still struggling. Great performance this week, getting clearly better every week. But I wonder at the end of the year, how are we talking about Albright? Is he? I don't want to say dominant. Dominant's a strong word, but is he like a 4 to 5 ERA guy or a 3 to 5 ERA guy instead of like this above 5?
Yeah, it's kind of tricky right now. I mean, that age curve is certainly playing a part that he's so young at this level. To be doing what he's doing is really impressive. Unfortunately for him, I mean, he was drafted in 2021 as a high schooler. Fortunately, he does have an extra year before he's Rule 5 eligible, so the Rockies get that extra time to really work with his game. But he's starting to emerge as someone, yeah, you mentioned, there's a lot of confidence, and clearly they have hopes and plans for him to make starts for the Rockies at some point in the future. Being a Double A right now, that gets you as close as you need to be to make that push for the big leagues. I mean, we're not going to see that this year with someone like him, but he's made a name for himself in this organization already. Starters this week for Hartford were great. They allowed just 11 runs in 33 2/3 innings, 6 of which were due on Andrew Cazeda's line. A little bit unfortunate, but he's had a great season otherwise. So outside of Cazeda, it was 5 earned runs in about 28 innings. So that the starters were dominant. But outside of Hill and Chavi, the bullpen got shelled, and I don't have the numbers, but that bullpen has so much talent. It's just disappointing to see them not shine through.
I agree. I think it's a lot of the walks. We have a lot of these I think we had a 7-run let-up inning. I don't know if that's just this week or last, but we tend to have like these 1-inning just disasters, and it does almost feel like a Rockies game sometimes when you're watching Hartford. Like it's like you slow death, right? It's like a lot of pitching meetings with the catcher. It's just like you kind of know it's going to happen. The control. Sometimes like a pitcher comes into the game and like you kind of just know after the first couple of pitches like he doesn't have it, and we see that. But I still like if you can strike guys out. Like I still think you can tune something and fix it, or even I know Charlie Blackman's big on like the before you play, like how do you set up yourself? What do you do the night before? And he's big on that, and I wonder if he can change something there. A lot of pitchers say you don't. Some pitchers say like you don't even know. One of my friend pitches, and he told me he doesn't really know when he's going to be good or not. He said like sometimes he'll throw before the game and he thinks he'll be bad, but he'll go out there and have good stuff. Sometimes it's the opposite. I wonder if there's something coaching wise we can do, because it does seem to be like you have talent, but some days it's just like you can't put it all together. And we see that so much with the bullpen. That's why these guys, the bullpen is the bullpen, right? You kind of have to be 100% in order, or you'll be lit up, because once you get to like your third at bat, you're kind of seeing things well. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just tough seeing the talent that's here. We've got, Juan Mejia, we mentioned. Bryce McGowan is someone with a ton of arm talent. Seth Halverson, Chavi, Evan Shaver, Alec Barger, who came from Atlanta as well last season. Jaden Hill, who's actually been, the guy last year who walked basically a guy per inning, has had arguably the best control of any Rockies reliever this year, or not just at the Hartford level. Guys like Mejia, McGowan, Halverson, they are walking close to a guy per inning, and that's gonna bite at some point. And that's sort of what we're seeing. Like some outings, guys can't hit them because they have upper 90s stuff, and then some outings they're just putting guys on base, and it's kind of nipping the team in the end.
Yeah. Do you want to go and switch to Spokane?
Well, I guess we gotta hit on hitters real quick.
Yes.
Yanquiel Fernandez. Yeah. Yanquiel Fernandez with a pair of home runs this week. Zach Acosta joined him in that. We have Adael Amador, who's still just not finding the hits, but his season on base percentage is .309. I'll let you hit Ryan Ritter. I know he's your guy. Just give us a little bit about this week and what's going on with him.
Yeah, I want to go back to Yank. It was funny last week. Me and Aaron said, like, we love Yank, but we're going to have to see more home runs, and he doubles his output in 1 week. So, like, there you go. I think he's really fine in the group. But Ryan Ritter, we said last week, like, realistic expectations for Ryan Ritter was, hey, go out there being a league average hitter and a good defender. He's done that. This week, he was one of the better players. Had a walk-off win yesterday. Infield single, but he legged it out. Really, like, that's what you do. If you have speed, you put pressure on it, infielders, and it creates errors. Ritter's the type of dude that I said it really last week. It's very simple to see Ritter's role as like this utility guy, this good defender who will he be a league average hitter in the MLB? I don't think so. I think he'll be like a 90 OPS plus, which is still good if you're great at defending and can run and do all the other things. So Ritter's a guy I'm keeping my eye on because I think Bud Black will love this guy if Bud Black's still around for when he gets caught up. But I mean, every coach loves a good utility infielder.
Yeah, I mean, the guy can pick it. He's here for a reason. The Rockies were hoping the bat would come along, and it certainly has a good bit. And now let's turn to Spokane. 5-2 on the week, 7 games. That's weird. They played Vancouver and missed like half the series due to a rainout a couple weeks ago. So they got an extra one of those games in a doubleheader. So they played 6 days, played 7 games. I mean, they've got to be a little bit tired. But I think it was Saturday, they had a 17-1 win in a 7-inning game as part of the doubleheader. So clearly the rust, there was no rust building on them. They finished pretty strong on the week. And we mentioned Brian Betancourt arriving, but there were a couple other guys in the offense that were doing crazy things.
Yeah, I'm going to just, Brandon Ward. Like this guy, we know Brandon Ward steals bases, hits bombs, but like I said, 11 hits, like, it almost feels like we don't know what to do with him, if that makes sense. He's one of these baseball players where it's like he has tools. Like it's not sometimes he's not one of those guys that we don't know what to do with because he's not good enough. It's kind of the opposite. Like his tools, we don't really know where to put him to maximize his tools. He can kind of do everything. And if he's on the bases, like pitchers are going to hate him. Catchers are going to hate him. He's going to run. He's hitting home runs. And he's also hitting for average, which is something that is almost like something people leave behind almost with these prospects. Like, big power, we love big power guys, but hitting for average just as important. I know it's kind of like not a thing anymore, not as big as it was a couple years ago, but I still love a dude who hits for average and can steal bases. That's, you said earlier, the leadoff guy. That's a guy who usually, if you look at a leadoff guy, it's usually a guy that kind of comes out of nowhere in a prospect in a farm system, right? You kind of like see a guy with high speed, and I think we were seeing that with Brandon Ward. I don't know if he's a leadoff guy, but I see the tools there, and his tools are so overpowering. Like his tools are really good. When his like speed tool, one of the best in the system.
Yeah, I mean, he can get it done on the base paths, in center field, or at second base. They've added that to his repertoire, which is great. And he's not going to hit for power. I mean, he's gone yard a few times in his career, but he's a gamer. He's going to get on base, and that's absolutely key. A couple other guys with Spokane who had solid weeks. Juan Guerrero, 11 hits. He's getting back on track. Dion Jorge had 10 hits, and Kyle Karros hit another home run this week. Not a great week overall. He had 9 hits though. 887 OPS. He continues to be, I'd say the best hitter in that lineup. He's been really consistent from the start. We know he's maybe not the most talented baseball player there. Cole Carrick, Dion Jorge are there, but Kyle Karros has been super steady, really solid hitter. He deserves some love on, just securing that lineup.
I agree. I think this week was past couple of weeks has been kind of depressing in Spokane. They're winning, they're still winning, but hitting wise, they're not there. This week we got it all back. Law of averages averaged out, and we had a bunch of hits, 17 runs in a game. That'll do it with the averages. So, but the pitching, I think, side of Spokane is where I think I get the most excited. I'm going to start off with my favorite dude, and it's Victor Juarez. That dude, that cat can just go out there and just pinpoint pitches. He's been kind of the unsung hero, and it's funny because I've sung his praises, I feel like, every other episode. So there's that. He goes out there and just, if I'm not wrong, he had 5 innings of shutout ball.
Right? Yeah, five shutties. Yeah.
There you go, 1.53 ERA. But granted, I know Dolan and Sullivan both strike guys out, and they're fun to watch. But you watch Juarez, man. He like you just said, Ward. He's a gamer. He's gonna find a way to win, and I love dudes like that don't Juarez is never gonna you're not gonna watch this guy and be like, whoa, he's not gonna be on a highlight, but he's just gonna find ways to win, and I'm in love with that type of dude. And also shout out Juarez. I just want to say shout out to him because if I'm not wrong, he did have more strikeouts this past week or no walks. He did something. I'll pull it back up. He did something this month in the stats that he didn't do the past couple months. I'll make a tweet on it. He's working on something. So
he's starting to miss some more bats though, for sure. This second go around in Spokane.
I wrote down in my notes.
It's got to be related to that. With the story though, everyone wants to hear what's going on with Sean Sullivan, Chase Dollander. We have to talk about them every time. We won't spend that much time this week because they gave up a combined 10 earned runs in 10 innings pitched. So not the best. I think the adversity is good. Guys like that are clearly they're super talented. They've been super successful. Getting beat and learning when and how you might get beat is important. They can cover their rear ends for outings where they might not have their best stuff and know, I can't get myself into those issues. So it's good to have some adversity. Before we flip to Fresno, I'm gonna, and you might pull up your stat, but I gotta give some love to Carson Skipper. He has a 0.56 ERA in 16 innings pitched. This is a dude from the SEC. He came from Auburn. He's a left-handed pitcher. Again, not a super overpowering guy. We've talked about that a lot today. Guys that aren't super powerful. Carson Palmquist is one. Carson Skipper, another kind of lower 90s lefty. He's getting the job done. He's got great stuff. So that's someone to keep an eye on in terms of relief prospects in this system.
Yeah, I agree. SEC guys, they tend to work out, especially recently. I'm going to go Victor Juarez. I was right. I was just making sure. In April, he pitched 18.1 innings, 11 strikeouts. May, 2 starts, 11 innings, 14 strikeouts. So he's already amassed the strikeout total from last month. We're in it seeing. If you watch him play, you're kind of seeing that. He's just a straight-up gamer. I love to see the progression.
Yeah, he bounced back and gives this system another starting pitching prospect with legitimate back-end upside. So hoping to see that continue. And we'll finish this pod out. Final few minutes getting into Fresno. They had a 5-1 week. Few hitters really carried the load. They had a rough stretch offensively, but they were dominant this week. Aside from a 13 loss on third, they had a terrible loss, but they win the other 5 games. Aiden Longwell, someone we've been pretty high on. He's a really good pure hitter. This week he gets a long ball, and I believe it was the first of his pro career. So he finding a little bit of his stride. He's led off or hit second for this Fresno lineup in a lot of games. And then Braylon Wimmer. I don't know what the injury was. He missed a few games in there, but he came back this week with 9 hits to really get himself back on track. And that's the guy who's supposed to be kind of the backpack carrier of this lineup. And we've seen Andy Perez break out, but Braylon Wimmer is more experienced and overall a little bit more of a developed player. So Braylon Wimmer back doing work for Fresno.
I agree. You see it with like these college guys. Like sometimes these college hitters, like they come into the Fresno and you're like, oh, these guys are already refined. And we're kind of seeing that with Wimmer. Like he kind of already, you see guys go to Fresno. Andy Perez is kind of struggling a little bit now. They struggle a little bit. Wimmer though is not struggling. He's killing it. So shout out him. I think the call up will be soon.
Yeah, he seems like probably the number one guy, at least from the lineup, to get the call up. Again, the age is a factor there. On the pitching side, we might be seeing some of the. We alluded to Wellington Herrera. Seems like a super logical. This guy has been way too good kind of guy. Otherwise, in the pitching department, I mean, we're seeing crazy stuff in Fresno from the pitchers. I'll start off with the least exciting name, Brian Perez. I mean, it's kind of exciting though. Still 12 strikeouts. Yeah. 12 Ks in 6 innings. He did give up 4 earned runs, which is a serious blemish on the night for him. But 12 Ks. Edinson Volquez's nephew, he used to be Brian Volquez, if you guys maybe remember. But Brian Perez, 12 Ks in 6 innings pitched. What a week for him. What a start. But other guys are doing even more, impressive stuff. So hop into a couple of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we talked about these two. If you haven't listened, go back. We talked to Jace Kaminska, and I think it's like the third Sunday in a row. It's a 6-man rotation, so he gets the Sunday starts. So bookmark it because he's a must-watch. I think it's his third Sunday without letting up a run, or it's like 1 run in the past 3 games, something insane like that. 6 guys striking out in 5 innings. Like, no, my bad. That was Coupe. My bad. Still doing it. 5 guys, again, struck out in 6 innings. But 1.26 ERA this year. And then, like, he's just this type of guy where it's like, he's going to eat innings. I feel like I've said that so much. But, like, you look at Kaminska and it's like, again, college guy. Already kind of, like, refined. Like, we're kind of seeing it. I think he's the best pitcher in this, like, Fresno group, I guess you can say, or, like, the potential Fresno group that could be coming up. I like him a lot. Coupe is a guy we talked about last week. Coupe is going to be a great reliever, right, if the starting doesn't work out. I think his career high in like innings pitch is like 5.5 or 5.1. So like I don't know if he's a starter long term, but his stuff completely plays out of the bullpen. He's striking guys up, and he's not walking guys. Only 9 on the year. Love to see it. I know one of your favorite dudes is next. You want to go and talk about Bryce Hammer?
Yeah, I mean, he when they drafted him, I had to drop the Hammer Time tweet because he drops the hammer. It's not just a silly pun. It's deep. There's depth to it. We're not messing around with our puns. I know Aaron drops a lot of puns, but the Bryson Hammer one is no joke. He has turned into one of the best relievers for that Fresno team. He had 3.2 shutout innings this week. Dropped him down to a 1.83 ERA in 19.2 innings. Another lefty, he's low mid 90s with a hammer breaking ball. So someone to watch in this system, anchoring that bullpen. We also saw Brady Hill notch 2 saves. He was a 22 draft pick out of San Jose State. So they've got a little bit of a duo working back there. Obviously, Wellington Herrera has been working a really solid job too. So that Fresno bullpen, they have that next generation that's ready to take that next step. Got to mention Jack Mahoney, another solid week. I think he went 5. It might have been 5 shutout. I might be mistaken on that. I'm going to try and confirm that really quick. But he had a solid week. 5 2/3, 1 earned run. So a solid outing for Jack Mahoney. We haven't seen that early season dominance from him, but between him and Jace Kaminska, I mean, this is a Fresno team that has a really, really good 1-2 punch. And then Isaiah Coupe, you mentioned. He's as finessey as it gets. I don't think finessey is a word, but we'll roll with it. It's a really solid pitching group down in Fresno.
Yeah, I agree. And you already said it. Like EJ and Hobson both had great weeks. We're kind of seeing, I feel like Fresno get back into form. They had a little bit of a losing streak, but we're kind of seeing them go back to being the Fresno Grizzlies, and they're going to win games. They're going to develop prospects. I'm excited to see. Maybe we'll do a little game here real quick. Who do you think will be caught up to Fresno first? Or give me a couple names of who you think will be there, because I do want to get this kind of off my chest. I talk about the Rockies a lot, and one of these things I can't really talk to people like my friends about is the age of our single A team, right? Like that doesn't play in conversation around friends. Believe it or not. So I mean, the hitters are an average age of 23.3. The average age of hitters in the league, California League, is 21. So we're 2.5 years, or give and take, above the average. That's just not something you want to see. I mean, youth is kind of everything in the prospect world. Like a 21-year-old good player versus a 19-year-old bad player with tools, they're usually the same rating, right? Because that's just how it works. And we're not really seeing that. So pitching-wise, it's the same. Not as bad. We're only like a year older on the pitching side, but hitters-wise, like who do you think will get the call up? Who do you think's first out of these teenage guys that could really make a difference?
I mean, it's tough because those guys are all so young. I don't think it'll be Robert Kalaz just since he's such a prized prospect for them. I mean, I guess the first guy they might get though, he's now one of the teenagers, is Brad Cumbas that we mentioned, just as a 2022 draftee, or no, he was 23, didn't play last year, so he's kind of ready for that Fresno challenge. I think he'd lower the average age. I'm pretty sure he's 22 right now. Otherwise, it seems like Yiker Reyes, who we mentioned, is that potential leadoff guy. Get some more talent in that outfield, some speed, another guy to get on base for you. I think that Fresno could really use that right now, and he's 18 years old.
There you go. That'll lower the average for sure.
An outlier. It's an outlier.
Yeah. we played Modesto, and Modesto, by far the best team in the California League, and they're also, I think, by far the youngest team. So it was really demoralizing, just getting destroyed by a bunch of like 19-year-olds, and you're like, wish that was ours. But we got some guys.
They had 3 first-round picks, Modesto, like the Seattle Mariners last year. 3 first-round picks, pretty much. They had an extra Julio Rodriguez pick and a competitive balance pick. All 3 on hitters, and they're in that Modesto lineup. So, yeah, it's a good model. It's a good model.
Their Modesto is our Hartford, if that makes sense. Like their talents kind of run into the one spot, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
So.
But I think just a final point on that, like the average age of those hitters, to me, it suggests the Rockies should draft a few more hitters than they usually do. They're putting guys in that Fresno lineup who aren't necessarily prospects. They're like, you think of Jake Snyder, they have Jason Hinchman. Those are guys who are making work, but they're there to fill gaps because the Rockies didn't otherwise have guys to go and fill those spots. So sort of my agenda plug that the Rockies need to draft a couple extra hitters this year, get a little bit more talent on that side of the ball this year. So anything else for the good of the cause here?
I was going to ask her. So your pitcher round 1, right? Like that's what you want.
Frankly, I prefer a hitter round 1. I just, at this point, I've come to terms the Rockies probably take a pitcher round 1.
Yeah,
there's
that's
2 really good options.
Yeah. So hopefully round 2 or comp round 1, we take like a high school guy over slot and like high school hitter over slot. I don't know who there is, but. And then I'll throw him in Fresno maybe, and we'll see what happens.
No, exactly. Get some young hitting talent. That's the Rockies could really use a little bit of that. Stretch that timeline out. A little extra bonus draft talk there. But anyway, go Rocks in the minor league affiliates. Woo!
Thank you for watching and listening. Please check out our link tree for